is widely accessible to the would-be authorized users. 2, that it remains functional and in service for suitable redundancies built in to ensure business continuity of the government services. 3, that it remains protected, safe, and useful at all times by the authorized users with the latest system upgrades and other state-of-the-art security protocols. And finally, that the government cloud system itself ultimately proves to be sustainable and meets the objective of the government to provide efficient, cost-effective, and accessible e-government services.
Martin Borte is the project director from Ernst & Young.
At the end of the session, I think for us, what we hope to achieve is to come up with a document. The substance of the documents that we've put together should be refined, okay? And more importantly, should be perfectly aligned to your vision and aspirations when it comes to cloud adoption. But not just that, but we also want to ensure that the challenges and opportunities within your cloud ecosystem finds expression in these documents that we've put together.
Malang Ebas, Deputy Permanent Secretary Technical at the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, highlights some of the benefits of the strategy.
More government digital platforms are currently being developed. That said, this will increase the demand for hosting government services, which cannot be effectively and sustainably hosted on the current traditional ICT infrastructure. To be able to mitigate those things, we have to think cloud. Also, most modern-day generation application softwares, if not all.
Cloud services offer governments cost savings, the capacity to rapidly scale, advanced cybersecurity features, and access to powerful analytical tools for processing big data. For QTV News, I am Julde Njai.
Now, following that brief interruption, we will take a look at Ansumana Isonyasi's story once again, which is that the Minister for Finance and Economic Affairs, Sidi Keita, says his ministry is implementing a series of programs to help stimulate domestic revenue and collection, as well as mitigate the impact of inflation. He was speaking at the joint IMF in-country launching of the April 2023 Regional Economic Outlook for Sub-Saharan Africa. And Sumana Sonyasi here.
The launch of this IMF in-country regional outlook is timely as it comes as the region confronts with economic challenges such as the cost of living, inflation, the funding squeeze, the confluence of higher global interest rates presented by the impact of the pandemic, and the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. The latter is largely believed to be a major factor in the disruption of the global supply chain, amongst other factors. The outlook provides a detailed view of the current economic realities in the region, particularly the Gambia, responding to questions on how the Gambia is coping with the geopolitical fragmentation, challenges associated with climate financing, and what government is doing to address debt vulnerability. Finance and Economic Affairs Minister Sidi Keita says the government has instituted several programs and strategies to help mitigate the impact of challenges such as inflation and cost of living.
We're doing this gradually because the economy is such a mammoth task. You have to nimble your way through in trying to do an economic reform. The Department of Immigration has now, recently also recorded record revenue. I think they collected for the first 3 months their annual target, which is remarkable. What we are also doing now is to ensure digitalization of government operations, to ensure revenue.
Presenting the in-country outlook for April 2023, Mamadou Julde Bari, IMF resident representative, says the report shows that funding squeeze will persist in the region for some time, adding that currency depreciation resulted to higher inflation and debt vulnerability. He also highlights IMF support to the Gambia.
The completion of the 6th review enabled an immediate disbursement of $6.7 million to help meet the country's balance of payment and budget financing need, and better respond to the costs of living crisis and support the most vulnerable.
Boa Sedi, Governor of Central Bank of the Gambia, and Chuks Uga, the Managing Director of Standard Chartered Bank, says despite the economic challenges, the Gambia's business and economic sector remains on a good footing compared to some other countries in the sub-region.
Growing in 2024 at 8.7 during this rough times is not really bad, because you need some element of inflation in our part of the world to grow.
If you permit me, I want to draw particular attention to the fact that despite the tighter financing conditions, the Gambia, I need to emphasize this, has a very stable financial system. I can't emphasize this enough. On the back of all the things that we've heard that has happened in OECD countries, we've heard about the Silicon Valley Bank, we've heard about the various banks that have had bankruptcy issues, liquidity issues, capital management issues. Our country has a very sound financial system.
One of the topics the Outlook addresses is how sub-Saharan countries are closing the gap on concessional climate financing in the region, indicating that although sub-Saharan Africa is the world's smallest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, it is the most vulnerable to climate-related shocks. Ansumana Isoinyasi for KTV News.
From that story by Ansumana Isoinyasi, we will now go for a short commercial break, and when we come back, we have local and sports news. To stay with us.
What are you calling on? Calling Corona? So it's a fine law. Okay.
I kodo kenya na nado kodo kamaja je sa maja kinina fo ko defuri hey nga kodo bala kata falina akoy kodo damale be je ni may sama no ngatu je atata falina
Assalamu alaikum baru kota ñi kodo ta jant yo ni bari kodo mambe ñanta ko di kendo re dila ñen ko do mo beda dibe ko do fam dibe jol dibe be fram fram fayna inji ya ja mo beda iba falin nale central bank ye memfo inal tolier yal safi ye memfali al yalo iko clean note policy ko di kendo al kalmol jowala yin kodi furi ngo kodi fundu alka mol sigal ka o sigal ka di mol man bete ya ibe nyi mudalal e kodi kendo di ni wote memba kunna tolete ala bita central bank andu memba kunna tol e kana van doleta de bole so janno bebe ta raje ko do mudaya
munena tawolantele yalo nko e nyanta kodi kendo di
ñina mu siloti men ñanta kake alkali al luwaye men fo alkali marawna fodi kendo alkali waldi mol alyama
Welcome back from that break. If you're just tuning in, you're watching QTV News, and I am Jennifer Sonko. Now, the Ministry of Trade, in collaboration with the International Trade Center, launched an online platform on Tuesday called the Jokalante Project for women horticultural producers and processors. Lole M. Camara has more.
The project's objective is to sustainably increase the income of women farmers and entrepreneurs in the horticultural value chain through digital inclusion and improved value chain efficiencies. Furthermore, the 3-year project will also help women farmers recover from the socio-economic crisis triggered by COVID-19 pandemic. Bala Kuyate, senior trade economist at the Ministry of Trade, said the project is funded by the European Investment Fund, and since inception in March 2021, the Ministry of Trade, with ICT and other stakeholders, have been working closely to create a market digital platform to enhance market access for women producers. Mr. Kuyate further explains.
Key among these activities are as follows. We did orientation programs for women farmers and entrepreneurs about the objective. And the objective of those orientations was to enhance their understanding, awareness about the digital value chain initiatives for effective utilization of digital platform in the horticultural value chain.
Modu Toure, technical advisor and monitoring and evaluation specialist at the Youth Empowerment Project, stated that the Jokalante platform aims to address some of the challenges women horticulture producers face.
Limited market access, which includes disorganized marketing arrangements and the unavailability of appropriate storage and transport facilities. High post-harvest losses and inadequate storage, processing, and value addition facilities. And last but not the least, limited information on horticultural data in particular for effective planning.
Mr. Toure further stated that the horticultural sector, which is estimated to account for 2% of the cultivated land, about 8% of the agricultural production, and represent about 16% of the agricultural production in value. Lamin Damfa, the permanent secretary, thanked the Trade Directorate and partners for their invaluable contributions in making the event a success. He encouraged women farmers, producers, and buyers to make best use of the platform. Beneficiaries of the Jokalante project gave testimonies of the benefits of the project. Milena Niehaus, project manager for the Jokalante and the International Trade Center, explained how the platform can be accessed.
You can access the website. It has information on the different crops. You can log in, and there you can also buy or make your offer as a buyer, and gives a bit more backgrounds on the project as such. What we want to highlight today is more the WhatsApp function, because that's the more practical way a lot of people, especially in the gardens, will use.
The project provides market-led approach that connects women farmers to markets, provides training on best agricultural practice, and promotes local production in the country. For QTV News, Loli M. Kamara.
The Ministry of Trade, Industry, Regional Integration and Employment, in partnership with the Large-Scale Ecosystem-Based Adaptation Project, through support from the Enhanced Integrated Framework Secretariat, is co-hosting a 2-day high-level dialogue on accessing trade-related climate change finance for the private sector. Aliou Cisse has more.
The main aim of the event, which opened on Wednesday, is to give participants the opportunity to enhance their knowledge of the procedures and processes for accessing trade-related climate finance in the context of green value chain developments. Climate finance is intended to support mitigation and adaptation actions. Peter Donlan, the country representative of Enhanced Integrated Framework, and Dr. Malanding Jaite, the project manager, Large-Scale Ecosystem-Based Adaptation, respectively, welcome EIF's continued support to the Gambia on accessing climate finance on trade-related topics. They cite this forum as another major step in reshaping the Gambia's commitment to accessing trade-related climate finance.
Climate change has already resulted in changing rainfall patterns, extreme weather events, leading to disruptions in trade supply chains. UNEP estimates annual adaptation costs in developing countries to reach $300 billion by 2030 and up to $500 billion by 2050. Going forward, aid for trade, including through funding windows such as the EIF, should support climate-resilient infrastructure and foster climate-proof supply chains.
One of the things we, in the world of environment, Ministry of Environment in general, understand is that climate change is here to stay. It is not one-day event. It is not something that you can actually sometimes feel, but if you live long enough, you would notice that something has happened.
During the 2 days, participants will discuss modalities for accessing global trade and climate change finance in the Gambia context, investment opportunities in the Gambia, among others, and situational analysis of the climate and climate change governance, such as regulations, policies, strategies, and plans in the Gambia. Deputizing for the Minister of Trade, the Minister of Information, Lamin Queen Jammeh, praised the long-standing relationship between the Gambia and EIF Secretariat while expressing the hope that the outcome of the forum will help guide the government's decision-making processes.
Since 2010, the Gambia has been working closely with the EIF Secretariat and has implemented a number of projects under the program. The project supported our national processes that made it possible to integrate trade issues into our national development plans. ELF funding support to the Gambia total more than $7.6 million, which helps in building the institutional capacities of trade institutions and improve the competitiveness of the private sector.
Climate change is one of the most important discourses globally. The EIF is a partnership of 51 countries, 24 donors, and 8 partner agencies working closely with governments, development organizations, and civil societies to support the least developed countries in integrating data into global trade. With the Gambia being one of the only 3 countries currently involved in the WTO trade and environmental and sustainability structure discussions, the Ministry of Trade is working with over 90 women-owned businesses on the Sea Trades initiatives being implemented in collaboration with the International Trade Center. Reporting for QTV News, I am Aliou Cissé.
Before we close, just to say that Gambia beat South Sudan 3-2 in their latest AFCON qualifier to move into second place in Group G. I'm afraid that is all we have time for in this edition of QTV News. Join us at 10 p.m. for another bulletin. Thanks for watching.